welcome to Cyflex video. So here I'm going to show you how I have merged the theories of the four temperaments and transactional analysis. So first let's look at the four temperaments, and we have them here. They have each a different color. So the red temperament describes someone who is persisting, goal-oriented, and who we could call an achiever. So those people, they're convinced of their ideas. And we can say that they have a strategic mind. They look at the future and what they would have to do to reach their goals. That's the achiever, or maybe we could call that temperament the winner, the warrior, something like this. The blue temperament is conscientious. It means someone who we could call a protector. So they have the sense of the collective, the sense of collective responsibility. And their mind is logistical. They look at how to put things at the right place and at the right time. They like to organize things. Now we've got the green. The green is we could call that temperament the romantic. So they are emotional, and their goal is to to make other people feel good. So they are concerned of the well-being of others. Their mind or thinking, we could call it diplomatic mind, because they want to be nice to other people. And they're high in agreeableness. Then the yellow temperament is the adventurer. And so that temperament defines someone who is a novelty seeker and open to experience. Their thinking is tactical thinking. Tactical is different from strategic for the reason that it looks at the short term. It means right now, what should I do? Turn left, turn right, do this or do that. It is someone who is in the now. Whereas the strategic mind is someone who will do more calculations about things in the longer term. These are the four temperaments. And now, before we go into transactional analysis, we need to understand this Sigmund Freud's model of the id, ego, and superego. So the ego is in between the superego and the id. So the id is that part of you that tells you to do sinful things. So this is why we see devils, and the one devil saying "dear," the other devil saying "one more." On the other side, there's your superego, and this is your mind. This is you talking to yourself, and maybe you will hear yourself say, "Hey, maybe you had enough beer, and if you drink too much, you won't be able to drive, and it might be dangerous, and the cops are going to stop you." That's the superego. So, and we are, as a person, as a full person, as a normal person, we are the ego. But the ego is pulled towards the id on one side and the superego on the other side. What you end up doing, the decision you make in the end is the ego. So that's Sigmund Freud's theory, and Eric Berne used it, but the first thing he did was to change the names. So the ego, the superego, he calls it the parent ego state. The id is the child ego state, and in between is someone who behaves as an adult. But the point of Eric Berne's transactional analysis is to understand interactions between people. So this is why we will confront two people. So in this diagram here, we've got one person on the left and one person on the right, and each of them they have the possibility to behave using their different ego states. So the parent, so P stands for parent, A is adult, C is for child. So let's imagine someone calls you, and they call you and they tell you, your friend calls you and tells you that she or he is depressed. So when someone is in need, when someone has problems and then they need help, that puts them by definition in their ego state of the child's ego states. The children are people who need others, they need help. So consequently, if someone is using their ego state, it implies that the protagonist is going to behave as a parent, because the parent is someone who helps the children, right? So in this example, it's written, the parent looks for the reasons, for example, the rationale, the behind the situation. They try to understand. So maybe the parent, and also the parent might also be critical. So the parent is going to say, but maybe you're depressed because you made wrong decisions. And the parent is going to continue saying, I disagree with your lifestyle, and you should have done this, you should have done that, and right now this is what you must do. So the parent's ego state tells uh, others what to do, because the parent ego state is the part of you that knows what's good, what's bad, and what to do, what not to do. So when you are talking to your friend with that parent ego state, you could be either critical or nurturing. But in this case, the parent is being critical. And as an adult, you will feel like, hey, you're telling me those things, but you're not my dad, you're not my mother, you're not my father. You shouldn't be saying things like this. Um, so, of course, these are two adults talking. But the reason why we can use this model, it can visualize which ego states we are using. So if your friend calls you to tell you that he or she is depressed, you could reply and say, well, I am depressed too. And that would mean that you are using your child's ego state. And you're, because someone who is depressed is someone who needs help. So both of you are using this same identical ego state of the child. And it puts you to equal. It means that you're both of you are equal. So it rebalances the conversation, the interaction, and the emotional transactions. It rebalances them into equality, and it means we can visualize it as as both of you having an adult conversation. So your friend might say, "Oh, you are depressed too. Do you have any solution?" And the other, the friend and you are going to say, "Well, how about this or that?" So this is an adult conversation. Is when two people are behaving reasonably, and none of the parent or child extremes. So we can apply the model of transactional analysis in the ego states of the parent and the child. We can use them in the model of the four temperaments. And here I was assuming that, let's look at the blue first. So the blue is the conscientious person, someone who protects other people and themselves. So my assumption was that they more often uh, use their parents' ego state because they are conscientious. By definition, they know what not to do, what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. As opposed to the yellow adventurer, who is a novelty seeker, someone who tends to take risks. So the interaction between the protector and the adventurer is that the protector is going to tell the adventurer to be careful, not to do this. And maybe the protector is going to ask the adventurer if they know what the consequences would be. It's quite likely that the adventurer will not know what to answer. And maybe the adventurer will ask the protector, oh, what does he think about that? And in that case, we would have a conversation in which the protector is a parent, whereas the adventurer is a child, as in the model of the parent and ego and child ego states. Now, the green romantic is someone who is very agreeable. So if ever the adventurer offers the romantic to, hey, let's go to Cuba, and the child, because the romantic is agreeable, they are more likely to agree, to say yes, and to do things that in which they don't know the consequences, and so the point is to say that the romantic personality might be tempted to do like the adventure, and that romantic person is more likely to be influenced and to behave using that ego state of the child. Now, the red one here, the persisting achiever, because they are the kind of people who know what they're doing in life. So if you imagine that adventurer say, hey, let's go to Cuba, let's go somewhere at the last minute, that achiever is quite likely to say no, because they have their goals in mind and they must achieve their goals. Now, if the idea of the adventure is in the scope of the goal of the achiever, maybe the achiever will agree to do something adventurous. On the other hand, if they don't agree, they might use reasons that would be the same reasons that the protector temperament would have used to tell the adventurer to be careful and to do the right things. Right. So this is why we could say that the protector is more often a parent, romantic might be more often a child, but these are assumptions that I'm making right now, and there are many possibilities. So we have just seen one example. In this example, we assume that the adventurer is more often a child. And as for the director, the achiever, the red temperament, they are more likely to behave as parents, in terms of the ego states of transactional analysis.